Mrs. Lewis, I assume you received the box.
I'd have an offer to make.
All right, we're here to talk about Cameron Diaz's box.
Oh, really?
Come on, man. You know I had to. You know that because you know that's what I was thinking when I heard about this movie.
No. This is the new Richard Kelly movie. You know, and it's funny, like, because you didn't get to see this, unfortunately. No. And that was not because you didn't want to. You really did. Just, you know, what are you going to do?
No, I'm curious to see this because when I had that big, like, oh, wow, I know this. When you were saying, what? I was reading the synopsis for this movie, and I know the exact Twilight Zone they're talking about.
Yeah, button.
It's the one where when you press a button, you get $1 million, but somebody else out there that you don't know or you think you don't know dies.
Yes, and that was from the 80s Twilight Zone, which was, you know, for you people might be going, yeah, 80s Twilight Zone, yeah. It was actually pretty awesome show.
Man, that show was really cool.
It was really cool.
There was no way it was going to last because that show is too smart for people.
It's about 4 seasons. That's not so bad. But
it
lasted for a while. It was pretty damn good. Had a lot of great episodes, a lot of big stars in it. Anyway.
Yeah, you dummies are smarter than I thought you were. All right.
That's neither here nor there. So the point is that you didn't get to see it. No. And I know a lot of people who actually didn't get to because there was no press screening for it. There was it felt like maybe a few people saw it and really hated it or something. And so they said, screw it, we're yanking all the advanced screenings, which is sad. I mean, even some celebrities, like for instance, maybe you didn't know this, but I'm good friends with Brad Pitt. And he called me because he was over in Tibet working on another piece. And he's like, I'm nowhere near a theater and I gotta know what's in the fucking box.
And you talk about me with my lame ass shit at the beginning of this. Man, I swear, where's my fucking hammer in here? I'm gonna beat your ass. God damn you.
I was laughing all the way over here to myself going,
I'm so disappointed. I really thought you knew Brad Pitt.
No,
fuck,
I'm not Carlisle.
I was going to,
Who doesn't know Brad Pitt either, but he'd say it
anyway. He'd be that guy that like brushed his shoulder at like some red carpet.
Yeah, and he'd be like, we're related.
Oh, yeah, he's my cousin. Yeah, you know, I slept with Brad Pitt.
But anyway.
By the way, I was hoping you knew him so he could get Angelina to call me back.
Yeah, I'm sure that would
I need my underwear back.
I'm sure that would be his first priority.
Well, I'm sorry.
Not to come over here and punch you in your nose. Anyway, this is The Box, the new Richard Kelly film done by the guy who did Donnie Darko and the guy who did Southland Tales. Anyway, this guy Richard Kelly is known for making definitely, off the charts types of films in sense of narrative. I mean, he doesn't want to tell a traditional story, which can really work great as in Donnie Darko or be a legendary Hollywood bomb like Southland Tales was. Yes. I mean, that's always going to be up there with like Ishtar and any number, Howard the Duck, just some of the worst movies ever.
Let me say this. I will say this for the record because I don't think I've ever admitted this. As much as we talk about those two assholes that did Meet the Spartans and Disaster Movie, if there's anything I hate more than those movies, it's Southland Tales.
See, the thing is, for me, those movies are boring. So I hate them because there's nothing. Southland Tales, I liked a little bit just because it's certainly not boring. It's awful, but it's not boring.
It's
and
true.
I can watch it and go, okay, this is entertaining me sheerly in the way that you watch a car accident happen in slow motion where the car's filled with clowns. There's just red noses flying everywhere.
You were right, because Leon and I, as much as we wanted to leave, we were like, we have to see where this goes next.
That's what I'm saying. It's nowhere near as bad as those Meet the Spartans, because those you could just give a shit. You're like, really? Who cares where this goes next? This is much better than that, The Box. It's his
I hope so.
Well, it's his attempt, as he said, to like try and make a film that satisfies his artistic sensibilities while appealing to a commercial market audience. And in some ways, that really succeeds here. It's certainly his most accessible film. I mean, it's nowhere near as weird as Donnie Darko, and it's nowhere near as disorganized as Southland Tales. But it's, at the same time, you kind of wish it was a little more weird. It didn't feel like it had to all come together.
Well, for him, that's pretty much a straightforward story.
Yeah. Well, I mean, once again, based on a Twilight Zone, which is based on a Richard Matheson story, same guy who wrote I Am Legend, called Button Button. The basic premise is, here in the film, not the original story, Cameron Diaz and James Marsden are a married couple in 1976 who are living in Richmond, Virginia, and James Marsden works for NASA, which I didn't even know there was a NASA in Richmond, Virginia, and I used to live there.
What did you say? He works for who?
NASA?
Is it NASA or NASA?
Well, it's an acronym, so technically there is no correct pronunciation.
Okay, because you said NASA like master.
NASA, the intruders of entering the building.
I was like, please don't whip me no more, NASA. I was going to work. Go ahead. I'm
Okay,
sorry.
for your sake, I'll say NASA.
Okay. That's a nice white way of saying it. Thank you.
But he's working on the Mars rover, which at that point, which obviously didn't happen anytime soon, but the idea is like they were going to put a Mars rover up there, was going to take pictures and stuff. And his wife, I'm not sure his wife's a school teacher. So one day, they get a box left in the front of their house, the titular box. And in it is this box with another box, a wooden box with a button and unclosed under glass, and there's a lock. So like, what the fuck is this? And a message saying, Mr. I can't remember his name, is going to be here.
Mr. NASA.
Yeah. No, the Mr. Other guy is going to come. So
okay.
Mr. Other guy shows up and it's, what's his name?
Frank Langella?
Frank Langella.
There you go.
Half of his face is missing, like burned away. And it's nasty. I mean, it's like they don't shy away from showing it to you, and it's a remarkable special effects job.
Oh, so he looks like Two-Face.
You know what? One thing I'll say about
even
this
Two-Face
is,
look at him and be like, man, I feel bad for you.
this was better than Two-Face as far as the way they did it. Like Two-Face, you look at it, you're like, okay, there's CG there. Here, you look at it and you're like, man, that's just fucked up. Even though you know there is, because half of the man's face is gone, and clearly, Frank Langella is a dedicated actor. But
yeah,
there's a point
he ain't gonna set
draw the
himself on fire. I think that'd be so cool if he did. Though.
It's like, man, that guy rocks.
I'm a real actor.
Yeah, screw Robert De Niro and Raging Bull.
Yeah,
I'll show you
gaining
what
weight
it's
ain't
all
nothing.
about.
Burning your face off. That's hardcore.
But anyway, so he shows up and he's all ugly and yet well dressed and dapper and says, you know what? Here's the deal. You got this box here, this button. If you choose in the next 24 hours to push this button, two things are going to happen. One, somebody you don't know somewhere in the world is going to die. And two, I will personally deliver you a briefcase full of $1 million in cash. If you tell anybody, the deal is off. If you fuck with the box, the deal is off. Well, yada, 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 So basically you get this one day. You either do it or you don't.
So, are you trying to sell me something?
Yes, in a way. I do have an offer to make.
What are you offering?
A financial opportunity. Let me explain. If you push the button, two things will happen. First, someone, somewhere in the world, whom you don't know, will die. Second, you will receive a payment of $1 million.
Are you for real?
Oh, I assure you, Mrs. Lewis, this offer is quite real.
Does by saying the deal is off, does that mean I'll kill you?
No, it means it just won't work.
It just won't work. Okay.
Yeah, if you tell somebody about it and then you push the button, it wouldn't make any difference at that
All
point. So anyway, it's this big thing like that. James Marsden doesn't even really believe that it's real. I mean, come on, really.
Of course,
really?
who would? Yeah.
She really does, though. I mean, there's too much about it that feels real. Plus, he's so creepy with half his face and stuff.
Of course.
And they get to this point where they're like, they realize recently they just had that day, like major downfalls in their life economically. And they're like, man, this would, what if it is real? And, she pushes the button. She's like, fuck it. It freaks her out, but, she takes it seriously, but she does it anyway. Sure enough, he shows up with $1 million.
With Ed McMahon, with a big ass check. Oh!
And, right off after they do it, they feel bad about it. And sure enough, that day, someone does indeed die.
Oh. And
there begins the big mystery that turns it into more than the Twilight Zone. Because the end of this is the end of that Twilight Zone, where he leaves and they say, well, what are you going to do with the box now? And he's like, simple. I'm going to reprogram it and give it to someone you don't know.
Dun, dun, dun.
Right. Well, that's right where it ends. And that's here in the movie as well.
Can I ask you a question now? How do they know that they're responsible for that person dying? I mean, everybody dies and you read about it on the news.
They don't. But the assumption is that they doesn't take long for them to believe it's true because some weird shit starts happening around them.
Okay.
All these people around, they keep showing up around them acting really weird and getting spontaneous nosebleeds and talking about this Mars lander. And of course it turns out that everything is indeed in some way. All this whole box thing is tied back to the job James Marsden has at NASA. And in the end, we're dealing with a very complex moral play about, people who make that decision. The problem is that it's really interesting up to a certain point while it's still a mystery.
Yeah.
But then all of a sudden it plays its hand when the movie's still got like 20 minutes left to go. It's like, okay, here's a solution.
So they tell you.
Yeah, they tell you like,
and then they just keep on going.
And it's very like, oh, by the way, it doesn't even feel like a big reveal. Oh, and this is it, which wasn't that hard to figure out. But you make
it sound like the movie keeps going. Like at this point, okay, everything's revealed. Now we're just gonna watch these people eat breakfast, come home, read the paper.
No, it's at that point they didn't know what to do next.
They just didn't. Yeah,
it was like they go, okay, well, here's the reveal of what's actually happening. Here's the whole story laid out for you about why this guy brought the box to them, what the meaning is of this, why people are getting nosebleeds everywhere. Here's the whole plot laid out for you.
Do they explain
20 minutes for the ending, and then it goes to a whole new moral quandary at the end that doesn't make any sense or have anything to do with what came before.
And do they explain why Mr. Crispy Face is all deformed?
Yes, they do. They explain every detail, which is really one of the downfalls here.
Okay.
I mean, like, okay, Donnie Darko, one of the appeals of that is that there's this sense of mystery to it that it explains just enough, where it just gives you a bigger taste for it. It makes you want to know more because it's such an interesting mystery. Here, it's an interesting mystery that they solved to the point of banality. I mean, you remember how in Donnie Darko they had the book, the guide to time travel or whatever?
Yeah.
Okay, and you're like, wow, this is just, it's even more of a mystery. There's so much, it's like finding some ancient text that you can just kind of decipher. Here, there's a book that explains in diagrams the entire plot of the film. Well, this is art, and you don't want them to explain every level of it to you. And when like every tiny little thing, and here it'd be like making love to a beautiful woman who in the middle of the sex act starts describing what is happening to her on a microbiological level at that point, not in a sexy way.
Yeah, I've had that done to me before. I'm on my period right now. God damn it.
No, she said my uterine walls are sloughing off the skin, and so it's creating a blood. It wouldn't just be saying I'm on my period.
Wait a minute, keep going. That's hot.
Oh God, somebody get me out of here. God help me. I need to think outside the box. I need to get outside the box.
You and these puns, man. I'm gonna pick up this computer and knock you upside your hand. Now, is this a problem that now I didn't see the movie. Is this a problem that what's his name?
Who? Richard Kelly?
Richard Kelly. Is this a problem that he has where because in Southland Tales, you could say it's going like everywhere, but maybe it was him just trying to explain way too much.
I don't know. Honestly, I think that Richard Kelly got really lucky with Donnie Darko. It was one of those like a dream project for him. It had been germinating for a long time. And so he had enough time to really make it work, but he didn't have the maturity as a filmmaker or a writer to do much past that yet.
Up until that 20 minutes, is it something that is really worth seeing? I mean, is it really suspenseful?
In fact, up until that 20 minutes, I was way into it. I was like, wow, this has got pretty damn good performances. I mean, this is maybe James Marsden's best performance in anything.
Really?
He is just a man racked with pain in this film, and it's amazing to watch him. Why do I keep forgetting his name? The
Frank Langella.
Call
him Crispy Face.
I'm just gonna call him Dracula or Nixon.
Yeah.
So Nixon is really great in this. He does that perfect amount of like whenever he has to express something facially that's not just his totally serious. It's just this tiny little thing. And because he's so serious the rest of the time, that just, you can't miss it. It's like a big signal flare. There's mysteries here, but at the end, the only mysteries that are left unsolved felt like they were just there just to be weird. Okay. You know what I mean? Which doesn't make sense with everything else that we've seen. It was like, so why did you even do that?
It almost seems like Richard Kelly has said, okay, I learned my lesson. I'm going to make a straightforward film. And then he gets the last 20 minutes like, I can't help but get weird. I got to.
See, it wasn't even that. It was weird through the rest of the film in good ways. And most of that's explained. They're just points in retrospect. You're like, well, I don't understand why that was like that.
Yeah.
But it really is a beautiful film to look at and to hear. The soundtrack is by the Arcade Fire, who's not playing rock music. It sounds like a Bernard Herrmann score.
So they actually
60s.
do like compositions for the film.
Score.
It's a score. Yeah.
I mean, it literally sounds like an old Hitchcock film or something. It's
really
incredibly gorgeous score that feels really out of place through most of this film.
Well, you really have sold me on this, man. I mean, you're making it sound very appealing.
There's a lot that is, but like I said, I can't even tell you how upset I am that it just falls apart because it is such a good movie up until that point when it just decides to go a different way that is totally unnecessary.
I'm just going to complicate our reviews even more, our ratings more. I got a math equation for you right here.
Oh, God.
What I'm hearing here is matinee minus 20 minutes equals full price.
What? How does that work? That would be backwards.
Matinee subtract 20
Oh, I
minutes.
see. Not quite, because it still has flaws. It's still filmed. It's filmed a little too tight at points that it feels like a television production. And that's really just the fault of Kelly, who feels like he hasn't really figured out how to set up this type of thing yet. It's a little distracting, the 70s stuff. Some of it is so in your face that it's just, it's, I don't even know how to describe it. It kind of makes your eyes bend. Like the wallpaper they have in their house is just the most hideously awful thing that I could begin to describe. And you can't pay attention to anything else when they're in their own house in a scene with this kitchen wallpaper that you know, is an atrocity.
You sure they didn't film this at my sister's house? She's got some of the shittiest wallpaper I've ever seen.
There's visual stuff too that's great. Like it's all about fearful symmetry. It's all about like it's all about balance that's just slightly off. I mean, there's so many scenes that all play with that sense of like, okay, everything else is symmetrical except for this one thing that makes everything feel askew. And like I said, there's a lot of interesting stuff on that point of view, but there's so much that is unbalanced in a way they didn't intend. Like I said, like the soundtrack from the Arcade Fire, which is gorgeous in and of itself and impressive, but feels out of place here because
Feels like it's made for a TV movie.
No, it feels like it's made for a much bigger and better film.
Well,
than
I'm talking
this
about
is.
that's the music. The music is so great that it shouldn't be for a TV movie.
Exactly. And it's very bombastic when nothing is in fact happening.
Yeah.
You know, and so that's a shame. Feels like they wrote the score and he just put it in wherever he could fit it rather than do it the way people score movies usually by, you know, watching the film and playing along with appropriate moments in the scenes.
Gotcha.
You know, this to me would have been a high matinee if it wasn't for the fact that there just isn't anything mildly resembling a satisfying resolution, which for some films isn't as bad a problem because the rest of the film is so good, like No Country for Old Men. But this is a mystery and it's all about the ending. I mean, there's no point to even watching this if you don't have a solution that makes you even mildly happy. And there's nothing in the end that's going to make you happy in any way.
So you being left unsatisfied,
I
you give it a
give this
rental.
still high rental.
High rental?
Because it is, like I said, there's a lot of it that is really good. And maybe it won't be being warned ahead of time. Watch out, because the ending is it may even piss you off, and more likely you'll just want to kill yourself. Knowing that ahead of time and maybe eating a bunch of sugar first. It's the high rental.
Bring in a box of kittens with you.
Exactly.
Pet a puppy before you go.
Something. I'd pet a puppy during the whole film, really.
Tell you what, somebody needs to give Richard Kelly this box because he needs to press that button 50 times to get $1 million and pay everybody back that saw Southland Tales. I rented it. I bought them crazy ass comic books based on it or anything.
Did it even make $50 million?
He needs to pay people back with interest. Okay? I mean, it's like I suffered. Well, you had me scared when you were saying this is much better than Southland Tales because if anything is worse than that, it's bad. A spiked bat stuck up my ass it's going to be worse than Southland Tales.
Man, you've got weird definitions of stuff. Like earlier this week, you're like, I'd rather sleep with Leon than see this movie again. I'm like, man, you guys are like, I'd rather see the worst movie I've ever seen than do any of that.
Man, I did not say that. You know I did not say that. I said I'd rather sleep with Carlisle.
Oh, fair enough. Okay, well, that I understand.
We push the button. We get $1 million. And we could be responsible for the death of another human being. Is that something we can live with?